I'm going to give you some ways to understand how anger evolves through our lives. I've never read or seen serious research on this, but I will describe my thoughts as a result of working specifically in this area for such a long time. You can decide for yourself how relevant you think it is.
Talk about the evolution of anger. I'm not talking about happiness, love, safety, or anything other than anger here. One thing most adults are aware of is that a newborn has language. This comes in the form of crying. There is the hunger cry, the tired cry, the hurt cry, the frustrated cry, the I need you cry, and many more. Parents respond to these cries in different ways. In fact, as a therapist, many of the issues that couples disagreed on had to do with their different views on how to raise a child or children. Often one side would accuse the other of being too strict. The other side would disagree and say their partner was too passive. Each would often accuse the other of either hurting the child's development by their strict behavior or spoiling the child, leading to problems later on. Children learn about anger. They see it, they hear it, and they feel it. Sometimes the anger can cause a child to become so uncomfortable that they cry. Sometimes when the child cries, one parent will rush to pick the child up. The other parent, if the child wasn't hurt, might say it's good to let the child cry until they stop on their own. A parent's attitudes, conscious or unconscious, help the child learn about anger. Take this for what it is, my experience and the things I've learned in my years as a professional. Birth to 3. This is a time when the child is learning language and rules. One of the first words learned is no. There is nothing wrong with this word since most of the time it's used to get the child to stop doing something the parent feels they shouldn't. No in and of itself is just a word. Add to it an attitude and a physical presence, and it may teach the child not only the appropriate use of the word, but possibly other things such as mistrust, guilt, fear, shame, and a sense of inferiority. A dysfunctional family might add things like, "What's wrong with you? How many times do I have to tell you? Stop doing that. You're making me mad. That's it. You're in trouble now." Add to this a belief that when the child is 2, it's the terrible 2s, then the awful 3s, and the horrible 4s. The child may now be this creature out to make life miserable for the frustrated parent who believes a child at 2 or 3 or 4 has the incredible ability to think and reason like an adult. For these parents, a child at this age is supposed to know and understand why before they even know much about the language they are learning. Another part of parenting that begins at this age is discipline. Some children not only get physically moved by a parent, but are hit by parents who are probably 100 pounds heavier than they are. The difference between hitting and discipline? Children hit, I guess, and parents discipline. Some children start to hear horrible things like, "You disgust me," "I regret the day I had you," "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about," "Shut up," and worse. During this time, many couples struggle. Remember, over 50% of relationships end within 5 years. That could mean 1 or 2 children are also hearing the kind of language used when couples end relationships. It isn't unusual for a child to use cuss words that they learned from a parent, then get in trouble for using it. Other things can come up into the language learning curve now as well. Phrases from couples like "I hate you," "Get out," "You're crazy," "Bitch," "Asshole," "Deadbeat," "I regret the day I met you," "You make me sick," and many, many other awful things that the child can pick up on. The healthy relationship teaches children, shares common beliefs, plays, shows affection, encourages, bonds, guides, shares, and more. The healthy anger identifies the issue and establishes reasonable ways to resolve the issues. Healthy anger by parents also helps teach healthy anger to children. This might include good boundaries. In other words, knowing when to put the brakes on, or taking a time out, acknowledging the issues, letting an individual have the experience of anger and being allowed to work through it, and more. Children who see their parents argue, reach understandings, and continue to love and support each other are by exposure likely to learn the same things. When siblings challenge each other, they can learn to make their point as well as learn that perhaps they made a mistake. The more they practice effective communication and healthy ways to resolve conflict, the more likely they may be to use these skills later in life. 4 to 6. During this time, there may be more than one child in the home, and competition may begin between the two. Since there is a process in learning how to share, the children may want whatever is in front of them. Parents will try to teach sharing, but also become frustrated by having to teach the same lessons so many times. Again, many of the couples may disagree on how to best parent the child or children. Children hear the tone in the parent's voice, along with some of the physical mannerisms, and may begin to use those same tones and mannerisms. This response by the child may be seen as a form of disrespect for at least one of the parents. The other may disagree and identify it as the child's character traits. For many parents, the couple has split up and the child or children have endured the arguing, experienced moving, often several times, gone through custody interviews, wondered where the other parent is, heard negative things about the other parent, and they may experience new adults in the home acting as a parent. The parents may also have a dysfunctional and emotionally charged high-drama parenting schedule. Children often hear terms like stop, no, leave me alone, go away, stop bothering me, do I have to tell you again? You're pushing it. What's wrong with you? How many times do I have to tell you? You're acting just like your mother, just like your father, and worse, sometimes much worse. Many times drugs and alcohol become a major part of the parent's life in a negative way. The result can often be resentment, arguing, isolation, fighting with siblings, getting in trouble in school, not being able to learn because of the stress, confusion, and poor self-image. That often leads to more parenting conflicts and blame by the parents on who is responsible. With 7 to 9-year-olds, there's more social involvement. There's a better understanding of right and wrong. The children seem bright and inquisitive. Parts of their personality show levels of independence. They may start to identify with their gender more. They may pick up on who seems to get privileges and who seems to not. An example, boys might be able to be more active and outspoken, whereas girls might be taught to be more courteous. Active girls may take on the role of a tomboy. Other girls may take on a role similar to the significant women in their life. Boys may be discouraged from playing with female-like objects and teased if they do so. The exception might be playing with action figures. Fighting may mimic the way parents fight with similar tones and attitudes which the parents describe as disrespect. In many homes, if a boy gets in a fight and loses, he's looked down on by other family members. If he wins, he gets the impression he did something right. For the girl, if she gets in a fight, she will likely be reprimanded, though peers may develop some level of respect for her, especially if she won a fight with a boy. In very dysfunctional relationships where a boy loses a fight, they may be told to go out and fight the person again. If the parents have a dysfunctional relationship, the children may act out, may start to do poorly in school, may fight with other siblings, may show signs of psychological trauma. Again, discipline becomes a major factor in controlling behavior. For some, it's healthy, maybe a talk and a timeout. For others, it becomes a snowball of dysfunction. It may start with a spanking for a small child with the thought, spare the rod and spoil the child. The name calling and yelling may become more frequent. The threats may become more frequent. The goal for the parents is to discipline, to get the child to stop what they are doing. Too often, the parent may choose to not spend time showing the child what needs to be done other than separate fighting siblings, which is actually a good thing. Far too often, because the child is learning dysfunctional behavior, the discipline becomes more severe. Children may be hit with a fist, a belt, an extension cord, a paddle, any number of items, along with the yelling and name-calling. The home is filled with dysfunction, and the children hear it, see it, experience it, and feel it. After hours, days, weeks, months, and years of this, they learn this form of anger. This can result in using what they learned as their form of anger and how to use it. Some may start to practice the language and actions similar to the techniques taught in the house. Others may become frightened to speak up and become depressed or struggle with self-image because of what they have heard and now believe. When the children grow up in a healthy, functional family, they experience parents who trust each other and care enough about each other to disagree on points they believe are important. The disagreements may go from quiet, well thought out, low volume explanations all the way to highly dramatic, loud, but for the most part proactive responses. The issues get resolved and healthy family life and co-parenting resume. The children at this age are much more aware. Language, rules, attitudes, values, etc. are better understood. What they can learn from this is that parents may disagree, but it becomes clear that the relationship is greater than the problem and issues get resolved. During this age, many children are developing new friends and are learning to pass on some of the values taught to them by their parents and role models. The children may get involved in sports, scouts, drama, church activities, or just establish good friendships. They practice somewhat unconsciously building trust and respect for others, as well as begin to recognize what people or situations they should avoid. If they make a major mistake, the parents take steps to help the child learn from the experience. 10 to 12 and 13 to 15. I see this period as the birth of the adult, and just as an infant has to go through a huge learning curve in the early years, this marks the birth of the adult age. There are new challenges to cope with, physically, psychologically, and socially, as they start to notice more adult changes internally as well as externally. For some, this time doesn't seem all that difficult. They have the experience of a good role model or have a genetic code that helps the challenges of anger go reasonably well. For others, the evolution of anger can be a time of major challenges, not only for themselves, but also parents and others close to them. Self-image can have a major impact on belief systems. Acceptance and fitting in become important, and rejection becomes an emotional hurdle to overcome. Many children at this point outwardly believe they have answers to the many issues confronting them, while at the same time can be struggling internally as they adjust to the numerous changes presented to them. If parents have issues of their own, such as different parenting beliefs, and engage in inappropriate anger, the effect on the child can lead to serious personal and interpersonal relationship problems. If the child becomes the focus of inappropriate anger, the effect can be devastating. Many adults with serious anger issues later in life, especially as it relates to relationships, begin to outwardly demonstrate these behaviors during this time. The young adults may feel trapped because of a lack of support and resources. Many young people who believe they were treated wrongly, or who believe they were not listened to, or who are becoming psychologically fragile, may be drawn to things that are not good for them. In other words, getting involved in alcohol or drugs, ignoring school, getting into bad relationships, getting into trouble with the law, active involvement in potentially self-destructive behavior, running away, and for some, combinations of them all. 16 to 18. It wasn't that long ago that this would have been considered adulthood. There are certainly a lot more responsibilities presented to this age group. As they get ready for living on their own, many recognize the need for work as a way to become self-sufficient. Many teenagers at this age have also developed serious intimate relationships, and if not, certainly hear about them and see them. The role that the male feels he should play and that his partner should play may be very different than the role the female believes she should play and what role she thinks her partner should play. Intimacy and sexuality can become a source of great confusion, and the ability to adjust and thrive during this time can be very challenging. There can be confusion about what a relationship is supposed to be. There can be confusion about what to do when the relationship isn't going right. For many, relationships end as well as friendships. These experiences can be traumatic. For some, this experience can be a great sense of loss and uncertainty, leading to periods of depression or anger. There can be huge shifts in values as a way of bargaining in order to get the relationships back. There may be a sense of betrayal, leading to future distrust in relationships and personal rules designed to protect themselves from being hurt like that again. On the other hand, this can also be a time where friendships become strong, and the honesty of those friendships becomes the foundation of what helps one make it through some difficult times. Oftentimes, young men are exposed to a type of intimidation whereby they either fight or don't. The fighter is often rewarded, especially if he wins. For some, losing a fight is not an option, and if the father in these relationships hears that his son lost a fight, he will be told to go fight that person again. For others, this could be a time where alliances are forged. This could be from the support of teammates, fellow gang members, or a club, group, or organization. Finding a group to connect with can be a very important source of stability. For those young men who don't fight, they are often given names such as wimp, pussy, sissy, fag, pump, or coward. These names can become the stain that dominates their future reputation. For the young woman, especially in this culture, independence is stressed, but so are looks and shapes. Intelligence is encouraged by friends and family. However, for many, the young man can often be intimidated by feeling he is not as smart or popular as she is. If there is a disagreement and a young woman is outspoken, she can become known as a bitch or a nag, a term that is not typically used toward a man. During the relationship, if the young woman gives a controversial opinion that the man doesn't override, friends might say something like, "I see who wears the pants in this relationship." Both the young man and young woman often struggle as they maneuver through this difficult time of adjustment, many times hurting and being hurt as they do so. Many young men and women during this time have worked for several years, doing various jobs that help them learn skills. These jobs can offer them an opportunity to learn how a man or woman is supposed to act at work. Oftentimes the workplace has individuals with poor anger management skills. The young men and women watch how others cope with these situations and decide what they think will work for them. At some point, most young men and women have or want to leave and live on their own. This time is a period of interesting choices and decisions. The young adults can get a job, they can get ready for the military, they can get ready for further education through a college or vocational school, they can start some kind of apprenticeship program or special training, they can hang out with friends, they can get involved with the legal system, or they can live off others. Many of these choices will challenge how they handle anger in the future.